In this video, I wanted to share with you the things that you should avoid and the pitfalls when editing or creating your automations. So let's dive right into it. The first mistake I see people do is try to connect triggers together. This doesn't work because a trigger begins a flow of actions, right? Like you see here. For instance, this trigger, opening emails, is a behavior that continues as you see here. And another one is a joined form. They filled out a form. This behavior goes this way. They are joined at some point in the action here called send email, or they could be their own independent workflow, which is completely unrelated. Connecting one trigger to another, which are square shaped by the way, will not work and the system will trigger an error. The second thing is the lack of configuration on some of these options on the screen. Everything that has been configured usually does not have this exclamation mark, but if you see it, that means you have to double click it, continue the configuration, and this will be hidden. Another mistake is not naming your labels properly. Now, this is not a critical error, but what happens is you end up with things on the back like opened email, joined. So I would make these labels relevant to me to say form or PDF download, and then maybe I have some IDs for me like CCM. So for me, this could mean something. Do not forget your target lists, and know also that on drop downs we have these segmented under different categories like your lists and all the forms, and landing page opt-ins for browser push notifications. So always look at the drop down options that we provide so you can choose from. Many of these will provide multi-option or multi-select. So if that's the case, feel free to optimize and select multiple options here. I do see people make the mistake of choosing yes to apply to historical data. Now, we did the no as a default on purpose because we don't want to roll back in time and resend whatever you're building here to the entire list. So only if you know what you're doing and if you have the reason for going back in time, keep it on a default as no. One more issue on the trigger side. Some people go in here, they try to kind of identify some things they could use, and they add rules, and they simply forget that they added these rules, and suddenly nobody's being inserted inside this flow. This doesn't work right. You always have to go back to it, target segment, and choose all the status confirmed. Okay. A common mistake that I've seen where things were not running smoothly. All right, now assuming you've launched this, you've configured it, you've launched it, and then you want to edit it. Now, if you didn't have anybody that have entered that automation, obviously that's not a problem. You can make any edits in the world. But let's assume that this workflow includes some people on this stage or this phase or anywhere around here. By clicking show statistics, this will give you how many subscribers or contacts on different stages. Now, editing could cause a problem, and I'll explain by dividing the types of edits. You can edit by double-clicking and changing configuration. This is not a problem. You can do it at any given time, but it will only apply for future people reaching that stage. Okay. That means if you have people who already passed, obviously that's too late for them. If you just add towards the end of the flow additional actions, that should work flawlessly as well, and the future signups will get that action. If you have your delays already set and you come in and you change the delays, this will only apply for future configuration. So don't make the mistake assuming that you've changed it and you've solved those that are pending. Actually, no. Those who are pending will inherit the previous value. Okay. If you have people stuck somewhere and you come back in here and you delete this and then you connect things, this will make you lose parts of the analytics. Okay. Now, ideally, if you don't care about that, that's fine. But if you do, I would highly recommend either keeping it or simply adding a rule that will make it unreachable at any given time. That rule could be as simple as last name include abracadabra, for instance. Okay. One more thing on this view, which is doing too much branching and doing an infinite loop that might look like this. So people are coming this way, then go back here, and just going in definitely about it. I mean, avoid that. The system will eventually just pause things at some point, but doing this loop will have the will cause error technically. Deleting triggers and re-adding them. If you ended up doing something like this by clicking on here and deleting, you've changed the IDs of a lot of stuff. So editing any item on the screen and then re-adding them will change the IDs, and that will reset the entire automation. Another thing to avoid if you have people pending somewhere and you don't want them to stop or be pushed out of this entire workflow. Okay, so be diligent about how you do your edits if you have some people pending throughout the flow. Finally, we have a note option from the left under the triggers. This will give you the opportunity to leave your notes to yourself or to your team members so they could identify what you're working on. Note on the top right, there is an option to go back in time to the autosaves or the versions you've configured before, so you're never losing on any of these options.